FastAPI is a strongly typed asynchronous web framework for Python designed to make your APIs highly performant and easy to code. It was created to solve a problem that Python developers face while building APIs. And that problem is which framework or library to use when building APIs. Now, there are two popular options. One is Flask and the other one is Django. Now, the thing is, like both of them have their pros and cons, but mostly when you're making APIs, those cons are gonna be obstacles for you. So let's get started with Django first. With Django, you get so many things out of the box since it's a batteries included framework that it kind of makes it intimidating to make APIs. And the Django REST framework is not actually the best thing when it comes to making APIs, and all of these features out of the box sort of make the framework bloated, okay? And I'm not putting emphasis on bloated. I'm just saying that it sort of has too many things, and you don't need all of it, okay? And it's not very performant compared to something like Flask. And coming to Flask, Flask is an amazing micro framework for Python. It's lightweight and almost comes with nothing. So that's the problem here. Even though Flask is a very lightweight framework, it sometimes feels that Flask is just like an empty box, and you need a few things in that box to make the API. Now, even though there are tons of community-made libraries for making APIs in Flask, it would still be better if there was a library that had all of the necessary things you need just to build APIs. While Django, it doesn't have things just to build APIs. It has like things for tons of other features in a website, maybe admin pages. It also has its own ORM and tons of other things. So that is like the reason why a lot of people might not like Flask. And that is the problem that FastAPI intends to solve. And from what I see, I think this framework has probably solved it in a proper way. FastAPI is lightweight, it is highly performant thanks to an open source Python ASCII framework called Starlette, and that is blazingly fast. Even they claim that it's on par with Node.js and Golang, which is something huge because Node.js and Golang, they're very performant compared to Python, but Starlette made it very fast. And the other thing that FastAPI has is data validation. So I'm going to go to the features page just to show you these features. So the thing it has is automatic data model documentation with JSON schema. Okay, wait, not that. Yeah. So basically, it uses Pydantic to validate the data for your payload. So maybe you have a post endpoint on your API, and instead of validating all of the data yourself, maybe you want to have a maximum length for a specific field in your JSON payload, the input. So FastAPI has Pydantic for this. So it uses Pydantic to validate data, and it just returns you an object and a schema for your input data, which is something really cool. It's not something that Flask has. I'm not sure that if Django has it or not, but yeah, I wouldn't use Django myself. So yeah, FastAPI has data validation. And the next thing it has is OpenAPI or Swagger. Now, when it comes to building APIs, since it's not like a website, it's just an API, you need some kind of HTTP software to test it. A popular choice is Postman. But the thing is, FastAPI comes with its own integrated Swagger UI, which is OpenAPI compliant. And you can basically test your API through your browser. So FastAPI has a /docs endpoint, a page, and you can interact with your API endpoints through that page. So you don't need something like Postman unless you want to do like cookie manipulation and things, but they can be done with the integrated browser dev tools. So yeah, this is something that FastAPI introduced. I haven't seen it in any other Python frameworks before, so yeah, it's very cool. And the next thing FastAPI supports is dependency injection. Now, dependency injection is basically it's a development pattern where you want to like loosely couple your classes, maybe your services, maybe your database CRUD repositories. But with dependency injection, basically inject a few classes or a few objects or functions which are dependencies. So maybe your controller or your path operation, at least that's what FastAPI calls, they call a route a path operation. So your path operation might be dependent on some object or class that probably will allow you to do something. Maybe it's dependent on a service class, or maybe a repository class. You can use FastAPI to inject those variables into your controller, and you can use them whenever you want. So that loosens up, your class dependencies, and one class doesn't have to be dependent on another and another. It just makes your code better. Okay, and I'm not the best person to explain dependency injection. I might be wrong because I haven't like used dependency injection myself for a long time, but yeah, that's basically the rough idea of what dependency injection is. So this is basically all the features of FastAPI, and if you're still using something like Flask or Django for building your APIs, I suggest you take a look at FastAPI. You might like it. And personally, I am a person who has been using Flask for developing REST APIs for the last 2 years, and I've moved on to FastAPI. Now I use FastAPI for building almost any kind of APIs. And the good thing about FastAPI is that you don't need to use an async ORM or like an async database driver to interact with your database. FastAPI supports the usage of normal synchronous functions for your path operations. So Starlette, like under the hood, will handle all of that, so you don't have to worry about it. So let's get started with writing a simple API in FastAPI. So I'm going to open up my terminal to install FastAPI. So I'm going to do pip reinstall FastAPI. That's all you need to do. This will install Pydantic, the UVcorn web server, Starlette, and the FastAPI server itself. Sorry, the FastAPI framework, not server. So to get started, let's import FastAPI. So from FastAPI, import FastAPI. So we're going to import the FastAPI class. And I can create an API instance. So I like to call it API, FastAPI. And that's basically all we need to just get started. Now, unlike Flask, you don't need to have an if __ name and just run the web server. FastAPI comes with the UVcorn web server, so you can do UVcorn, or maybe you can install. Oh, actually, it doesn't come with the UVcorn server by default. You need to install it, so you can do pip install UVcorn, and it's gonna install the UVcorn web server. Now I can do UVcorn main : API. So main is the name of your file, so the file which possesses the API instance, and then you put in the name of the variable API, and then I'm gonna put -- reload so that whenever I save the file, it reloads the server. I'm gonna hit enter, and now it started the server on this port. If I go here, you see it says not found, and that is because I didn't create an endpoint yet. If I go to the /docs page or endpoint, you see it shows you an integrated documentation page using OpenAPI. This is actually called the Swagger API UI, as far as I know. And this is the OpenAPI.json, which has all of your paths and stuff. So let's get started with creating a path operation. At least that's what FastAPI calls it. So I'm going to do API.get, and we're going to call it maybe user. I'm going to call it users, and I can do async def get users, and I can return some users. So I can do users, and I can have a few people here. I can have someone like name, and that's me, and then I can have someone else. Oh god, I'm struggling to type. So I have a few users here. And if I now refresh this page, the API docs, you see it says get users. So this is the default API router. So you see it tells you what kind of responses you might get. It tells you what kind of parameters you might have. Try it out. I can click execute. And you see when I execute it, it shows you a curl command. The same command, I can open up my terminal and run it. and it returns me the same thing. So this is the Swagger UI. It's amazing. It also shows you the response headers and also the response body, which is really, really cool. So you have that. Now let's actually have a post request. So I want to show you how the data validation works with FastAPI. So I can have an app.post slash create. So I want to create a new user. Just say, for example, you can do async def create user, and I can just return something like status okay. So if I want to create a user here, I'm gonna keep this. So what I do is I would like to create a schema for the input that I'm gonna get for the post request, for the JSON body. For that, I need to import the base model. So from Pydantic, import base model. And I'm gonna have a few things here. First thing I'm gonna have is a class. I'm gonna call this create user body. This is gonna inherit from base model, and I'm going to specify the things that I want to have. So here I am going to have a name, which is a string. I'm gonna have an email, which is a string as well, and I want to have an age. But this time I'm going to make it optional using the Python typing library. So basically use type annotations or like type hints to do things. So I'm gonna have int, and here I'm going to do payload colon and then the name of the class which represents the payload body. And here I can just print the payload. So if I refresh the page, you see there are two endpoints now, the create endpoint, and I can now try it out. And if I run this, if I execute this, it's going to say okay, because FastAPI knows what fields you need to make it, perfect, like work perfectly fine. So for the age, let's say I don't put anything in the age. It says wait. Oh, okay, there's a comma here. Let me remove that. It says status okay. And the reason is age is an optional. So I use the optional type hint to let FastAPI or the Swagger docs or Pydantic, I don't know what handles this, but I just let it know that if someone does not enter age, it would not be a problem. It's optional. So it still works, but what if I remove the email? Let's remove the email. It's going to give me an error. It says value error dot missing. Now, the issue is that email is not optional. Email is required, and since I didn't put email, it's going to say that email is missing. So I can also take KW, I think, constraint, or is this like constr? Yeah, this is constr. So basically, constr is a constraint-based string thing. So I can do str, and then I can do constr, and basically I can put in some kind of constraint here. So before I put it for the email, I'm going to put it for the name, and a constraint is basically a condition. So the data has to be of specific type. So I can now specify a length, or like the max length or the minimum length. So I can do min length has to be 3, and max length can be, let's say, 10. Just an example. So if I type it something like, if I type in something that's like smaller than 3 characters, let's say I put 1 character in here, and I put an email. I'm gonna put in an email. I'm gonna reset, and I put in 1 string here, 1 character here. Wait, did it not save? I think I used it like. Okay, this is how you should use this. Okay, yeah. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. I'm not sure. Let me do this. I think this is how you use it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's how you use it. So it says ensure this value has at least 3 characters. Value error.nestr min length. And you see it's saying name. So name has to have at least 3 characters. If I have like 4 characters or something like that, it's going to say status okay. But if I have more than 10, so this is 11, if I execute it, oh wait, my bad. if I execute it, it says ensure this value has at most 10 characters. So you have data validation at Pydantic. And you can also use regex. So for the email, I'm also going to do constr regex. And I'm going to use an email regex, which I'm going to search Stack Overflow. So email regex Python. And I'm basically going to copy this. So I'm going to go to Stack Overflow. And okay, this is Stack of Views. We're going to go to Stack Overflow to copy a regex, since that's how developers do it. And yep, this is the regex. I'm going to go here. And I'm going to paste this in here. And if I execute this, you see, okay, wait, let me actually remove a few things. You see, it says that string does not match the regex. So I'm going to put in a valid email. I'm going to put in my email. If I execute this, it says okay. But if it's not a valid email, let me remove the @ sign. It's going to say string does not match regex. So you can have data validation here with multiple constraints. You can have regex. You can have optional data. And it's just very, very easy to use. And it's also lightweight. It's not as empty as Flask. It's not an empty framework. It has what you need to create an API, but it's also not as bloat as Django. Okay. Now, I'm not hating on Django. Django is still an amazing framework, but it's not the best option for making APIs, if you get what I mean. So yeah, that's basically how you use FastAPI. Now, I also want to show you the dependency injection feature. So let's say I have a class. So I'm gonna use something like I'm gonna create a class. Just as an example, I'm gonna say user service. I'm gonna call this user service, and basically it's gonna have something like create, or maybe add user. It's gonna have a state here, or maybe I don't need the state. I can just do taken self, and then probably have a constructor that does not do anything. I'm gonna take self, and then the user, which will be like this here. So I'm gonna call this user here. It's gonna be like user, and then I'm gonna just print user. Just printing it over here. I'm gonna say user added, and I'm gonna print this over here. That's all I'm going to do. Maybe I don't even need a constructor here. I forgot how to use Python. So here I can use dependency injection to basically, instead of creating an instance of this class somewhere, or creating an instance manually, like every single route, I can use dependency injection to only create an instance of this class when I need it. Okay, so I can just inject this class. I can just inject this object into the route. So since the route is dependent on the service, I can just inject it here, and the route can use it. So I can have user service, and I can just have something the service as a type hint, and then I can do depends. I can do this both ways. I can just have it as a type hint, or I can just do depends user service. But I prefer having it as a type hint, because that way my editor knows what I'm using here. Okay, like what I'm actually using here. So I can do user service dot add user, and the user payload that I get, so I'm gonna call it new user. I can just put this in here. Okay, I'm just gonna put this in here, and it says status okay. So if I go here, and if I put in a value, so I'm gonna put the name, and then execute this, it says status okay. And if I go here, it says user added, my name, email, and age, and that means that it's running this user service. So that is basically how you use dependency injection in FastAPI. So overall, FastAPI is probably now will be my go-to for the Python framework that I'm going to be using whenever I make APIs. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.